This episode is brought to you by Disney. This Thanksgiving, Judy Hopps and Nick Wilde are back on the big screen. So grab your family and friends as Disney invites you to return to Zootopia for the phenomenal movie event of the holiday season. See all your favorite Zootopia characters plus new favorites in the most pawsome movie of the year. Don't miss Disney Zootopia 2 when it hits theaters everywhere November 26th. Get your tickets now.
Meet the computer you can talk to. With Copilot on Windows, working, creating, and collaborating is as easy as talking. Got writer's block? Share your screen with Copilot Vision to help spark inspiration, and use Copilot Voice to have a conversation and brainstorm ideas. Or maybe you need some tech help. With Copilot Vision, Copilot sees what you see. Let Copilot talk you through step-by-step guidance so you can master new apps, games, and skills faster. Try now at windows.com/Copilot.
Buckeye Talk is about to begin. Hey, 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 come on in.
Welcome back to Buckeye Talk. I'm Stephen Means. That's Stefan Krajisnik, and that is Andrew Gillis. We talk with Ryan Day on Tuesday ahead of Ohio State's final home game of the season. They'll play Rutgers on Saturday. It's a noon kickoff. 2 more noon kickoffs, man. 2 more noon kickoffs and we're free. We actually haven't had nearly as many noon kickoffs. I just think last year was so many noon kickoffs that people got sick of it. So what's new, Stefan?
What's new is that there's nothing new, I guess.
Anything interesting on Tuesday that we learned?
Interesting that we learned? No. Interesting that we can talk about plenty.
Gillis, was there like an agenda today? I don't know. Anything you wanted to learn?
Seems like they're going to stick with a 2-man rotation at right guard. Ryan Day did say that in the affirmative, that he would like to have a two-person situation there.
I mean, no, that is fair. That is newsy information.
I learned that today.
Is there, I guess, Stefan, who are the two, I guess, becomes the conversation. No point.
I think it goes back to a conversation we had a couple of days ago where it feels like right now it's Tegra and Gabe. And then if you want to figure out where Padilla fits in the mix going into the playoff, you have time to do that. But I don't know if that's the most interesting thing, because there's another 2 guys worth talking about.
There are. Okay. Well, guess Gillis, I mean, you can try again. Stefan didn't like your answer, apparently, so you can try again. Anything else?
That we learned, they have 2 receivers on this team that are pretty good. And Ryan Day didn't give much of an update about them. We learned updates about some other stuff. Josh Padilla coming back from an injury. I don't think we really got our status update.
I don't think he actually ever said.
I don't think he actually answered that. I know Josh Padilla was in the question from Dylan Davis, and I don't think he answered it. I think it was a 2-man rotation. It's what he's looking for, but it was a lot of injury questions, a lot of injury talk, and it was not just like, let's hear about JJ and Carnell. It was a lot of, what's the injury protocol look like? Has there been setbacks for these guys? It was a very deep, dense injury day, I would say.
Yeah, okay. So he got asked flat out the bat about Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate. His answer, our policy is that we don't discuss specifics on injuries. Once you start going down a little bit here, a little bit there, you can create a problem. And so for a number of reasons, we don't discuss those things. We put out the availability report the day of the game. I can tell you that they're in great spirits. The medical staff is working hard. We'll take it day to day and see how they come in each day. But they're working hard to get back on the field. We check in every day. We take the advice of the medical staff and use their feedback, and we go from there. We'll continue to do that. Let's start with that quote, Stefan, on Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate. And I guess we can work our way through this. By the way, nobody asked about CJ Donaldson either, who was questionable and did not play, but it's because the other 3 running backs played so well that it became a levels to this conversation. And I think that's harsh to say, but that's the truth of the matter. It is, right? Like, if CJ Donaldson doesn't play, it's fine. You have 3 other running backs. If Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate don't play, they have other receivers. They just don't have other receivers who are as good as these 2, at least not right now where they are in their development. Based on that quote, Stefan, not should they play on Saturday, because I think that's a different question. Do you think it's possible that they could physically be able to play football for Ohio State on Saturday if Ohio State needed Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith to play football on Saturday?
Yeah, it would sound like they could be if needed, or if Ohio State wanted to play them. Yeah, I've spent a lot of time going back and forth on just everything that Ryan Day said on Tuesday and trying to make some sense of it, and frankly, trying to read into it, maybe more than it needs to be read into. I just think there's a lot of unknown, and he didn't really want to answer anything pertaining to the situation. But at its core, what's one thing we know about each of the guys is that Carnell was in uniform against Purdue, and Ryan Day said had he needed to play, he likely could have. And what do we know about Jeremiah Smith? That despite everything that looked horrible on Saturday in terms of him limping and all that stuff, when he played, he looked fine. He had 4 catches for 40 yards and a one-handed catch. So at its core, I don't think this is a disaster, the world is on fire situation. But I think if you're an Ohio State fan, you probably have some PTSD of how this stuff worked out with Jackson Smith and Jigba. You probably have some fears about what this could mean to Ohio State's national title hopes. And I think it's totally understandable if you can understand why Ryan Day didn't provide answers, while also simultaneously understanding why non-answers can also lead to speculation and fear, and people on social media and fans with, talking amongst themselves, why they would kind of get a bit nervous. I think 2 things can be true.
Who are you more concerned about right now? Carnell Tate or Jeremiah Smith, Andrew?
That's a good question. In terms of health, it's like in terms of obviously you want JJ on the field. No disrespect to Carnell, but you want JJ out there. In terms of pure which one, I kind of lean Carnell because Carnell just hasn't played. That's where I'm at with it with JJ of Jeremiah Smith was working through something. Obviously, you guys were watching him like a hawk during warm-ups. He was working through something on his right leg. He goes out there. He has a one-handed catch. He looks fine. I'll say this. While he was running routes and while he was playing the game, there wasn't anything to the watchful eye really that lets you know this guy's really laboring right now. There wasn't anything.
Adrenaline definitely.
Yeah,
probably.
So that I think you definitely looked at it and went okay, he at least played, and I know the image wasn't great, but Carnell has not played since November 1st, and that's probably why. So I think it's Carnell.
Yeah,
it's 2 things you're balancing of we saw JJ limping, so that doesn't look good. But also the reason we saw JJ limping is because he played and was probably kind of stiff afterwards, where Carnell Tate didn't play at all. So it's what's worse, the guy you could see even though he played, or the guy you can't see because he literally couldn't play?
Yeah, which is why I asked it, because it's not an easy answer, right? It's a bit of a conversation. There's an element here of we're all psycho overanalyzing this conversation. And it's as simple as, sure, JJ's dealing with something. He was fine, adrenaline kicked in, and he was playing football, and it's whatever. And then all of a sudden, he's standing on the sideline because he took a hit in the game, right? It's not like they were just using him as a decoy out there. They ran their offense, and he looked perfectly fine. He had a Jeremiah Smith catch. Right? So, and then you do all that, and now you're standing on the sideline not doing anything, and your body kind of, the adrenaline wears off, and whatever you're dealing with, right? There's a chance that JJ's issue is a pain tolerance thing, and it'll get better with time, right? We're just covering Ohio State, and they have a very recent history of seeing how things can sometimes that maybe we don't think are a big deal can become a big deal, and then we don't see the player ever again, right? Saw in 2022 what happened with Jackson Smith and Jigba. We saw what happened with Travion Henderson, where this is how Ohio State and their policy on handling injuries goes. And the reason why fans get so upset is because it gets taken out on Travion Henderson, and then to come find out he has to have surgery on his foot that he broke in week 3 of that season, and he's walking around on the sideline during a playoff game with a peg leg on. Literally, he had a peg leg. It was funny. I was talking to him about it, you're like a pirate, man. You're walking around here with a peg leg. And that's so it just kind of looks bad when Travion doesn't play well, and it's because he's not healthy, but nobody knows the reason he's not healthy or what he is dealing with. And so they just think he's not playing well, and because he's, kind of regressed from where he was as a true freshman. And it would have been a different conversation if the general public knew what he was dealing with. Right? But these are college kids. I get it. You want to protect them and whatnot. But sometimes protecting them sometimes can put them in even more harm's way. I have no reason to think that's what's happening with Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate. I think what happened with Carnell is He dealt with something, and instead of giving him 1 week, they gave him 2 weeks. And now JJ's dealing with something. He thought he could play through it in a way that Carnell didn't think he could play through it against Purdue, and the medical staff and everybody else agreed he probably couldn't play through it. So they tried to get him out there. They had him on a snap count. He got to the end of the snap count, and that's that. And now he's going to do what Carnell did last week, where he's not going to play. And he's not even going to dress because there's no reason to push it. I think the Carnell Tate one's interesting because this is going to be his last game at Ohio Stadium. Tomorrow, later on this afternoon, you're going to hear us on the live show talk about some third-year guys who we think also might be playing their last game at Ohio Stadium. I'm sure we're all going to agree on Carnell Tate, Arvell Reese, and Caleb Downs. There's like 4 or 5 other people where I think there are some intriguing conversations to be had about why they could go and why they could stay, and why there's pros and cons to both of those things that I think will make for a good show, a great show. But I don't know if Carnell's fine. I don't know if there's harm in giving him the JJ plan, right? Where it's his last game in Ohio Stadium. You give him 15 to 20 snaps, get him out there for a couple of drives, and then you get him out of there. Because you're going to do the same thing with the rest of the starters. Best case scenario, because Julian Sand even got nicked up last week. Brandon Ennis even got nicked up last week. Regardless of who plays and who doesn't play, I don't anticipate a lot of starters playing in the second half on Saturday. So if Carnell is fine and that extra week of rest got him what he needed, and the only issue is right now Ryan Day won't talk about it, so it makes it seem like maybe it's a bigger issue than it is. I don't know. I think I'm talking in circles. I don't think I'm concerned about either of them right now. I just think what we heard on Tuesday didn't put our mind at ease if you were concerned about them.
Yeah. I think there's an element too of like the Carnell, like you said, the pitch count kind of thing. It might not be a bad idea to put him out there and test it a little bit before you get into Michigan game, right? And see if he's ready to go full go. You know, I don't obviously I don't want to say like there's no risk there. There is some risk there. Like you got to acknowledge that it's football, but it might not be the worst idea either to like put him out there, see how he can handle it, see how he's feeling. And of course, obviously you can do that in practice as well. It doesn't have to just be on Saturday, but it's hard to simulate real game versus, you know, what you have in practice.
But I think that's like, it got asked today of, can you just walk through the week and how the conversations go, right? And there's guys who are listed throughout the week by the medical staff as full go, there's limited, and there's out. And sometimes in that limited, it can be, okay, like Tuesdays are good on good practice. That's like the hardest practice of the week. Okay, when it's a teaching or an individual period, Carnell can do that. Or CJ Donaldson can do that. But when they're doing competitive stuff, then like this guy's not going to do that, right? And you're probably already doing some of that stuff because if your starter, like even if Carnell Tate was fully healthy, he's going to play 60 snaps on Saturday. Right. So you're not going to have him go 200 snaps in practice, right? You're just not going to do that. So those are your categories. You go from full go, limited to out. And throughout the week, they evaluate, they get more information on guys. And by the time you get to the availability report, it turns into you're either available, you're questionable, or you're unavailable. And that's just kind of what that is. Day sometimes makes his involvement with the medical stuff seem very matter of fact. Like he just lets the medical people do what they have to do. Yes, he has conversations. Yes, he has input, but he leaves a lot of that to the medical staff people versus like this is 1963 where you're hurt, you're not injured, you're going to play football, right? It's just not working that way, which is why when Day gets asked, did JJ playing 22 snaps against UCLA make things worse than they maybe already were? I almost tend to believe him when he says, not that I know of.
Which is also what he said when I asked if the hit at Illinois back in, I think, what was that, like mid-October? Probably around a month ago.
October 11th.
Yeah. If that has been kind of the cause of the nagging issue, he also said, not that I know of. Which would be interesting because everything suggests this is like a right leg thing, but back injuries kind of have weird ways of showing themselves. So I guess you can't particularly rule that out. Like when you have a back injury, everything in the world is stiff.
Yeah, I was going to say, just like as somebody who has had a back injury in their life, and if you're listening to this and you've had a back injury, like not only does like moving hurt or breathing hurt, like you said, sometimes weird stuff happens. My college roommate had a back thing, limped for a year because he had a back issue that impacted his leg. Like, not saying that Jeremiah's going to limp for a year, but it was one of those things where He was like, yeah, my back is hurt, and now all of a sudden I can't walk properly because my knee is messed up. It was very weird. So back issues, like, I really hope it's not that, just because I wouldn't wish a back issue on anybody.
It would be fascinating too. And like, again, Day said that when he was asked, sorry, as I was talking, Steve went to take a sip of his Gatorade, but he forgot to take off the cap, so I just watched that happen while I tried to make a point.
I was wondering if you were going to keep powering through that.
Be a pro, man. Be a pro.
Day talking about the stone killing Goliath. It would be fascinating if like we got to the end of the season and the like biggest injury was a result of something that kind of happened and we swept under the rug in October and it actually was nagging. But Day said, not that I know of, when asked if that hit has had any lingering effects. I do think that was a good question by Bill though, because that's the most obvious like, big hit that we've seen Jeremiah take, and it was to his back. And Day's talking about a nagging injury, like that could very well have been it. Maybe it still is. Day said, not that I know of. So yeah, it's a fascinating situation, and I do think it makes it interesting on the coaching staff, like Day talking about the limited, full go, not available in practice, like stuff like that. And you're right, Stephen. Like the medical staff has a lot of say and kind of dictates a lot of this, but it does ultimately come down to the player and the coaching staff. I think if it's a situation like JJ where they say, hey, this guy's probably best served being questionable, like that is where I think Ryan Day can step in and be like, questionable versus UCLA means you don't play. Questionable versus Rutgers means you don't play. And I wonder if that's what happened with Carnell. Like maybe if we were being true, like completely truthful about his status for UCLA was, hey, let's have this guy be questionable, have him be a game-time decision. Is that where Ryan Day steps in and says, we're just going to list Carnell as out because I'm not even going to risk that? And that's, I think, where the coaches and the players have somewhat of a decision is right. You are the ones who can determine the risk reward, where you let the medical staff kind of give you the, letter of the law. Here's what we think about this injury.
Okay. Is this interesting or is this enjoyable?
Not particularly. I don't think injuries are fun at all.
Okay. But just like the way we're talking about this.
No, because here's the thing, and I'm not
18 minutes into the pod. This is not interesting.
It's interesting, but is it? What are fans supposed to take from the 18 minutes of listening to what we just said? Is essentially what I'm asking.
That everything is, I think, going to be played close to the vest from here on.
Cool, that's fine. But that's the thing. Let's read into it. Like I'm going to be a fan for a second. I'm worried. I think my favorite team is the best team, bar none, in college football. I think we have the two best receivers in college football and the best quarterback in college football. And nobody can do anything about that trio. One of those trio randomly did not play against Purdue. And you told me, based on conversations you had with Ryan Day, that everything was okay. And then he didn't play again against UCLA. Also, another one of those trio was listed as questionable out of nowhere, and you told me it was okay, based on conversations you had with Ryan Day. And then I watched him limp off the field after 22 snaps. And then I got the text. I saw what you sent. I went and found someone's YouTube video and listened to it myself. And I heard what Ryan Day had to say about them. I have received all the information. And now I'm sitting down to listen to Buckeye Talk. Stefan and Andrew, what's going on? What's your read on the situation? How should I feel as a fan about where those two stand and whether or not they are going to play against Michigan in 10 days?
I think all the signs would point to that they would both probably play against Michigan.
Because that's all that matters, right, Gillis? Yeah. Like this, it literally does not matter if they play football on Saturday. But if you feel like all of this is not impacting their ability to play, and arguably regardless of what happens the rest of this season, probably the most important game of the season, because it's the only one where anybody is going into it with real questions about Ohio State's ability to win the football game. And it's not obvious, and we've gone over the reasons why we'll continue to do that. But if that's how you feel as a fan, isn't that all that matters at this point, is whether or not you feel like those two will be on the field when Ohio State takes the field in Ann Arbor in 10 days?
Yes, but your coach has not given you a reason to 100% feel certain about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And me saying I think they will play, I didn't walk away from Ryan Day's press conference being able to say for certain that's what's going to happen. They're going to be fine by the time Michigan rolls around. And that's why I think those first 18 minutes that we joked about were important, is because every question we asked and don't particularly have an answer to right now is what a fan is asking. Well, why didn't he play? Well, okay, what's the process of deciding if he plays? Well, even if he could play, do they just take the safe route? Okay, well, is it this hit against Illinois? Like, is that like all that stuff? If you're a fan, is questions you have, because if the actual question to any of those answers is a concerning one, then you have a different discussion of, okay, now will they play against Michigan? And that's where maybe some uncertainty creeps in. So I get it. If you're a fan, you have a million questions, and what Ryan Day said on Tuesday hasn't given you a ton of answers, and that's tough to deal with as a fan. Not knowing is the toughest part. It's like people always talk about how many more car accidents happen than like plane crashes, but you feel more comfortable in a car because you got the control and you're holding the wheel. Whereas on a plane, you're trusting someone in the cockpit to do everything right. And here you are, you have questions, you don't have answers. Whereas if you're the one whose right leg is hurting a little bit, like, hey, I'll be good in 2 weeks. I won't be good in 2 weeks. Like, you know the answer. When it's someone else and you don't have the answers, then that's where it becomes difficult. And I get it. I get it if you're a fan. Like, I'm a fan of teams too. It sucks not knowing injury stuff.
Yeah, I think the word I would have would be like unsettled, because if we walked into the Woody and we did a pre-presser pod, 10 minutes, what do you want to hear most from Ryan Day? What questions do you have for him? And you had said, Andrew, what percentage chance do you give Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate to play? Or do you think they're going to play? I would say, yeah, I think they're probably going to play. I think they're going to play against Michigan. I couldn't say that in the like affirmative 100% because I don't feel that way, because we don't have confirmation. Like, is Sonny Styles going to play against Michigan? Yes. he's there. Like, we asked Ryan Day basically, are these two guys cool? And he went, we don't want to talk about that.
He said, don't worry about that.
Yeah, he said, don't you worry about that. Yeah, it's like, hey Ryan, we ordered pizza for dinner, right? Is it on the way? I got it taken care of. What does that mean? Tell me if the pizza's on the way. Tell me if I'm going to eat dinner. Do I need to make other arrangements? Do I need to order Chinese food? What am I doing? Like,
go wash your hands. Don't worry about
it. Yeah. If you were at a dinner party and you're sitting there and everybody's hungry and you look at the guy who's supposed to be in charge of catering the food and you said, food's on the way, right? And he went, don't worry about it. I got it. You'd be like, dude, what are you doing? So I get it. I totally get being nervous. I would be nervous too in that situation. I would be nervous too if I were an Ohio State fan in this situation. Granted, maybe I'm just a nervous person in general, but you asked for an answer. You didn't get it. You were looking for a positive. Like, we're not doing this right now. If Ryan Day gets to the podium and says like what he said about Josh Padilla, where, hey, Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith, if they can't play this weekend, they'll be back next weekend. They're good. Like, if there was a much more affirmative timeline, a much more definite, set in stone, this is what's going on timeline. And that's why I think people are nervous. And I'm not going to tell people you should be fine with that. Like, hey, don't freak out, dude. The two best players on the team maybe are not dressed, or one of them was limping off the field and one of them didn't play against UCLA. Okay. I totally get the nerves there. So I'm not going to tell people that they're wrong to do that. It's just my likelihood thoughts of them playing against Michigan at 11:15 when I walked into the Woody were the same at 1:15 when I left. And we didn't really get much of an answer to change that opinion one way or the other.
We can't compare this to Josh Padilla.
It's not Josh Padilla, of course.
It's not even that it's not Josh Padilla. It's we asked him that after the Purdue game when the next 2 weeks were UCLA and Rutgers, not after the UCLA game when the next 2 weeks are Rutgers. And
the policy can change.
Yeah,
I don't think we can laugh about that. We can call it what it is. We can call it what it is. Ryan, I don't think our policies. We don't talk about injury. Like 2 weeks after he said Josh Padilla, if he doesn't play this week, will play next week.
Yeah,
it's kind of
I think To be fair, yeah, but also one's at a podium on a Tuesday when he's had preparation for this versus right after a game. But I don't think the policy changed. It matters now.
I think it was Lorenzo where they held him out for precautionary reasons against Wisconsin, and then either during the bye week or going into Penn State, Ryan Day was asked about Lorenzo, and he was like, "Yeah, he's going to play on Saturday." We didn't get that, but also he didn't say, "I would love to tell you that he's going to play on Saturday, but our policy prohibits that."
Yeah, listen, you know what it is? You remember when you took your driver's test and you did everything? Like there's law of the letter of how you're supposed to drive, and then there's the way we all drive now, right? When you took your driver's test, you were 10 and 2. You were stopping at stop signs for 15 seconds. You were
stop it! All right,
you were by the book.
Stop at stop signs.
You've never rolled a stop sign before? Please.
Yeah, what are you doing, bro? Like, don't do that.
Of course I've rolled a stop sign.
That's what I'm saying.
Did you roll a stop sign on your driver's test?
No, you didn't.
No.
Exactly. So, like, that's the point I'm making. When you were taking your driver's test, you did everything by the book to a T. Are you doing that now? Or are you checking your phone and driving with one hand and eating and rolling stop signs?
I want to be clear. We here at Buckeye Talk do not condone unsafe driving habits. Please buckle your seatbelts and keep your eyes on the road at all times.
Yeah, listen. But look, we
need the clarification.
Steven said that, and someone literally right now is like, I was looking at my phone while driving.
There's somebody with a fry in their mouth right now listening to this going, you put that down. It's just, yeah, it's the rules didn't change. It's just the stakes are higher.
We need to can we start NFLing this thing? Like, NFL puts out an injury report every day. Like, we need to start NFLing this thing.
Yeah, but the thing is,
coaches aren't going to want that, but we need to start
the
NFL.
SEC kind of does that too, yeah? They have
do
an availability
on Wednesday
one,
and I think they do the night before the
Big Ten does it too. It's just they just will do it midweek. You have to have it in by a certain day of the week.
Yeah.
The thing is, you're out. I think that goes in line with talking to players and stuff. They're not contractually obligated to do these things the way they are in the NFL, where there's collective bargaining agreement. There's just not that stuff.
Right.
So you're right. There are some. I don't like to apply NFL rules to college football because the reasons they have to do those is because they're contractually obligated to. They're not contractually obligated to do a lot of things.
You also are the one who's said multiple times that you think it's time for a collective bargaining agreement in college football.
I agree. Yes.
Yes.
I'm saying when you get the collective bargaining agreement in college football, then all those other things just tend to fall in line, right? That's what I'm saying is if you do take care of the big if you put a roof over your head, all of a sudden you don't feel raindrops on your forehead in the middle of the night, right? It's all the little things just kind of fall under those things. But here's what I'll say. I'm done being the fan asking a question now. I'm Steven again. What?
No, I just thought that was funny. Like it was like a split personality.
Oh yeah. I tried to completely remove myself and just be fan.
That was
I'm 9. Even seen.
That was 9. This is Steven. That was 9.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Here's what I think. They're playing Rutgers this week, and if you got anything nagging, you're not playing. And you can't. To be honest with you, if Julian wasn't a first-year starting quarterback making his 11th start, I would be dramatic enough to say he should be included in this, and why not just sit him? But can't do that with a young quarterback, and that's also a little too cocky. Rutgers is still a Big Ten opponent. They're not good, but they're still a Big Ten opponent, and you're just not. You can't throw out. The last time Ryan Day sat a starting quarterback because of health reasons, it was in 2021. He sat C.J. Stroud, but that was against Akron. It wasn't against a Big Ten opponent. So it doesn't matter that they're a bad Big Ten opponent. They're still a Big Ten opponent. They're just not good.
Also, you want to keep the rhythm going, too.
You want to keep but it's the fact, this is the chance for him to continue to build chemistry with the backups. It's just you don't sit your quarterback in college football. That's just, we haven't reached that point yet. Like you talked about the NFL, Stefan, where it's the last week of the regular season, the game doesn't matter, and you just sit all your starters. We haven't reached that point. But if Carnell and JJ are 85%, and you think if we sit them, we can get them to 95. You're not going to get them to 100 because they've played football this year. No one's at 100%. Then you do that. Then you sit them. You don't need them to beat Rutgers, and it's why Ryan Day can talk about it like this. It's because it doesn't matter whether they play or not this week. They are going to beat Rutgers by multiple touchdowns. And in their replacement, you get more Bryson Rogers, you get more Mylan Graham, you get more Brandon Dennis, you get more Quincy Porter, you get more of these young guys involved and getting experience that's going to matter for the long run of the season. You handle your business in the first half. Maybe you're up, 27-0, 24-3, 31-3, something like that, right? One more drive in the third quarter. And as long as it's not because I think they would have pulled them after the first drive in the third quarter last week had it not been a 3-and-out. But Ryan Day's not going out on a 3-and-out. That's just not. One quality drive in the third quarter. Great game, Julian. Have a seat. Great game, Brandon. Have a seat. Great game, Austin, Luke, Carson, Phillip Daniels, Bo Jackson. Have a seat. Hey, Isaiah. Hey, James. The third quarter and a half belongs to you. Hey, Lincoln. The next quarter and a half belongs to you. Backup offensive line. The next quarter and a half belongs to you. Maybe we even get another Tavian St. Clair series at the end of this game on Saturday, right? And it's the same thing on offense. Caleb Downs didn't play in the second half. I don't expect him to play in the second half on this Saturday. Also don't expect Davis and Nick Minosin and Sonny Styles and Caden McDonald and Kenyatta Jackson and Caden Curry and on down the list there. Arvell Reese, I don't expect those guys to play. I expect to see Riley Pettijohn rotating in with the ones, and Peyton Pierce rotating in with the ones, and Devin Sanchez and Aaron Scott, Leroy Roker, Fahim Delane. The list can keep going on. Your starters need to be spectators by 10 minutes left in the third quarter on Saturday. And it's on to Michigan. And then Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate will play next Saturday. You are both correct. There's nothing happened today that made you feel more confident about what's going on with Jeremiah and Carnell, but also nothing happened today that made you feel less confident in what's going on with Jeremiah and Carnell. So it's the wise thing to do is not play them on Saturday, and that's probably what they're going to do.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask you guys that question. So, let's pretend we're in a hypothetical world. We go 6 days from today's press conference into the future, having known the fact that Jeremiah and Carnell didn't play. Ohio State beat Rutgers 38-7. Hip, hip, hooray. Everybody's happy. They're going into Michigan 11-0. Hey, Ryan, Jeremiah and Carnell going to play this week? Do we think he gives the, yep, we're good, they're healthy? Or do we think he plays it like today where he says, no, and the reason I ask that is because do we think we get clarity is probably a better way to say that. Do we think we get clarity before November 20th?
No, because we're also talking to them on Monday.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, we talk with them on Tuesday, and you think about it like this. We get Day on Tuesday afternoon. He's not seen these players. Mondays, they're off day. So the players are not in the Woody. So that's why sometimes these questions aren't even valuable on a Tuesday, because when he says he doesn't know, he genuinely does not know, which is why it's always valuable to ask them during the Wednesday night lightning round, because then they would have had 2 practices by the time we're asking that question, and it's their 2 hardest practices of the week. It's their good on good practice, and then the day they're doing third down stuff. So we're going to have a better answer to that question. Unfortunately, because of the way things are scheduled, and it's not just Ohio State, this is everywhere, right? Thanksgiving is next week. So we're going to get everybody on Monday instead of Tuesday, which is even more of a reason of hey, you seen Carnell and JJ yet? No, they're at home. I literally haven't. So no, we're not going to get that clarity.
Yeah, and I asked that to just kind of almost, because I figured that was what.
Yeah, and it's not. We're not going to get it because they're hiding anything. It's just the player's day off is on Monday.
And I'm assuming that Stefan would probably feel the same way.
It would make no sense for Ohio. Michigan's preparing for Carnell and Jeremiah. If they don't play, Michigan's saying, "Woohoo! We don't need to prepare for Miley Graham and Bryson Rogers. We'll take the JJ and Carnell game plan and adjust if we have to." I don't think you're giving yourself any competitive advantage. I think the only competitive advantage you would give yourself if you said, "Hey, Jeremiah's out for the season," but then he plays against Michigan, and then Michigan's which also that's not allowed.
And the reason I brought that up is just because I wanted to just kind of state that of if you wanted to hear Ryan Day say all's good, nothing's the matter, everybody's healthy, we're all holding hands and singing Kumbaya at the Woody, everybody's feeling great, you're probably not going to get that answer before the Michigan.
But also, Ohio State's not the only person dealing with this.
Of course.
Right? Haynes is out for the rest of the regular season.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, he might be out for the rest of the season, period. But the way that Sharon Moore talked about it on Monday, he left the door open for Justice Haynes to come back in a potential situation where they are playing in the postseason, right? Because why would you give a final answer when you don't have to give a final answer?
Right.
He also did not really give an answer on whether or not Jordan Marshall, their other star running back, would be available this upcoming week, let alone next week. But he did reveal who would be the guy who would step in for those guys. But Sharon Moore is handling this with the two guys who are his stars, the engine of his offense, the exact same way Ryan Day's handling his situation. It's just we cover Ohio State.
If Ryan Day knew for certain that Jeremiah and Carnell were playing against Michigan, it wouldn't surprise me if on that Monday he was like, yeah, they're fine, they're going to play. But if he doesn't give an answer, I also don't think it's the end of the world. That, like you said, Stephen, the press conference being on the Monday is probably going to make it a bit tougher to begin with.
Yeah. I also don't.
What I'm saying is I don't think Ryan Day's viewing this as like a competitive advantage.
Oh, it's more of like I don't have to say anything, so I'm not going to say anything. Yeah. But also, if he doesn't say it, it doesn't. I'm still going to think they're going to play on Saturday.
Yeah. I think one more. I was going to say one more injury thing that was asked and like doesn't feel like a huge thing. Day was asked about Julian Sayin having his ankle rolled up on, if that like had affected, anything like it. Julian still completed 74% of his passes, so it's like crazy to even talk about this. But like you could tell, like things were off in certain situations, and you do wonder, like does a rolled ankle have anything to do with that? Ryan Day kind of made it seem like, hey, he hasn't gotten a lot of reps with Mylan Graham, Bryson Rogers, Quincy Porter. Like I think that's a lot of what he and the way Julian Sayin talked about it post game too. I think Stephen, you had asked me, he had said like, no, my ankle's fine. I wouldn't read too much into Julian Sayin's relative struggles as a result of his ankle being rolled up on it. It sounds like, which is maybe, I don't know, is it more concerning, I guess, if there is potential that these are the receivers that at least play on this Saturday. I don't think it's I think everything's fine with Julian, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. To be honest with you, I didn't think the ankle was that big of a deal because he didn't miss a play.
Right.
And granted, the offense was coming off the field, but I don't think he would have missed a play had the offense still been out there on the field. And I didn't look at his throws and think, oh man, his ankle is getting in the way of things. A lot of his misses were timing with the receivers. I know he had the throw that probably should have been a touchdown on the go ball to Mylan Graham. He just got pressured, so he had to get rid of it quicker than he wanted to get rid of it, and so Mylan Graham couldn't get under it. Mylan Graham's not 6'4", 215 pounds, the way that Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith are, so there were some one-on-one, contested catches that he didn't come down with that JJ or Carnell would have came down with, right? So it's just stuff like that. But it's even more of a reason for why you don't need Carnell and JJ this week. Because if they're not going to, if I was Ryan Day, I would establish that right now. Not publicly, but just in the building. They're not playing this week. Because now Mylan, Bryson, and Quincy are getting all the ones reps on the outside, which means that's plenty of reps between them and Julian Sayin between Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday practices and on Saturday during the game. Because that helps close the gap for if there is a worst case scenario where the one of them doesn't play. I mean, I thought Bryson Rogers had a pretty good game on Saturday. He was making a few plays out there, right? So we spent 45 minutes, and I think the conclusion needs to be, it's okay. It's fine. And if it's not fine, we'll say that. But I don't think there's a reason to think it's not fine right now. They're playing the worst defense in the Big Ten, factually.
But team should have lost to Ohio.
It's true. All that said, I agree. I think it's fine. If you're a fan who wants to get to Saturday and just get an answer, and you're going to worry until you do get an answer, I think that's also fine too.
Yeah, I think I'm not going to tell you how to feel. I totally understand it.
614-350-3315, 2-week free trial, $3.99. After that, I hope that eased everybody. There's no reason to think they won't play against Michigan, and as long as they play against Michigan, none of this matters. Live show at 11, talking about a few third-year guys who could be playing their last game in Ohio Stadium, why they could be, and also why they couldn't be, why they could be back in 2026 as well. I think it's a really interesting list because it's not a bunch of like surefire guys. It's guys where it's a little bit more of a nuanced conversation. We'll be back in the Woody Wednesday evening. Hopefully we get an eye on receivers because I think that will help some people if they're able to be like, hey, we saw Carnell Tate and he was in pads and it looked like he practiced. That might be some people at these as well. So 614-350-335, 2-week free trial, $3.99 after that. For Stefan, Krajisnik, and Andrew Gillis, I'm Stephen Means. Talk to you guys later.